It's a Tuesday edition of Husker247 Daily after a long weekend. I'm Michael Bruntz. Brian Christopherson joins me over there. Brian, how was your weekend? Lot to discuss, but let's do the check-in. How you doing?
I'm doing mediocre, but I caught up with some sleep. We had a wild weekend in the Christopherson house with some health scares, but everything is good. So I'm good today. I feel like I got some juice to me now.
Nice. Got the vest on, ready to
Yeah.
dive into Nebraska's weekend. Matt Rhule talked, kind of a rare Friday appearance on Sports Nightly from Matt Rhule, hitting on a bunch of topics. A lot of them that were already covered on the Zach Gelb show earlier last week. So um, let's start here. The ground is still frozen outside. Pitchers and catchers have not yet reported. UPS guys still wearing the pants, not switching to the shorts yet. But we're going to get Nebraska spring football really quick here. About a month away. Matt Rhule says they're going to get rolling at the end of February. And by the way, the spring game is back. Brian, are you excited?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I'm not going to be sarcastic about it because I've been one of
Sorry.
those. No, I'm one of those old souls who I understand everything's changing in our world and we're supposed to change with it, but I like a few staples. And so yeah, set me up with sort of a normal scrimmage where fans can watch it, and I'm going to sign up for it.
March 28th, by the way, is the date. So Nebraska successfully avoids Masters weekend again.
Okay, that's all that matters, really. Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of this?
Mhm.
It sounds like things are going to be a little bit. They're getting right to the football, is what he said.
Well, Rule's sort of been hinting at this even like during last season, how he was telling strength coach Corey Campbell in particular to like look around everywhere, like on the calendar of what people are doing, how we want to set this up, what we want to change. And I think there's some good points as to why they're moving it up. So the first practice would probably begin like February 21st, basically, like the last week of February. And it allows the guys who get in here that are fresh from the portal, I think, to get acclimated to the football part and how you do that stuff earlier. And I think that can be useful too, as opposed to like going for, multiple months of sort of like this drudgery with mat drills and stuff where it doesn't feel like you're so disconnected from the actual game. Like, it helps, it matters, it's building team chemistry, but there's something about being on that field and just getting going with your new team and feeling like these are my guys now. Let's go forward with this group. And so that actually makes a lot of sense to me. And I bet a lot more teams are going to want to get going with that sooner. That and sort of the rules twisting. I don't know exactly how they're going to be set up yet, but I feel like there's more opportunities to be around players in the summer, than there used to be. And so with that, why wouldn't you move it up, since you also get those sort of meeting times or whatever face-to-faces that can happen in the summer? So it makes sense to me. And another big point is if there's an injury,
Mm-hmm.
which is, knock on wood, you hate that, but it's bound to happen to one or two guys. And sometimes if you did have an injury like late February, early March, you could pop back in by early in the season or before the season. So that there's something to be said for that.
Is there also a case to be made that with two? I mean, we'll consider Daniel Kalen a new quarterback, but having two new quarterbacks to kind of just get to it a little bit faster too.
Yeah, I think so. Like make it their team, and just the whole thing though, like every new guy that comes in, I have to think that's useful. Like, okay, I'm out there with the helmets on with these guys pretty soon after I signed on the dotted line. Like, let's roll. But yeah, for the quarterbacks in particular, where you have to have that leadership component, that this gives them a little earlier start to I guess emphasize that to their peers between the lines. And so that's useful. It sounds like Calandria, we'll get into this in other podcasts, but had sort of that it factor off the bus when he visited here. And so this gives him a chance to just expound on that with his guys in a practice setting real early. The only interesting part, Bruntz, and we talked about this, is there will be a collision around here with coverage with March with March Madness. Like I mean, there will actually be the way this hoops team is going. They're going to be in the tournament. We don't know how long, of course, but there's going to be so much excitement about that squad, and so it is an interesting intersection with football and basketball at the same time. But that's good. We'll have plenty on the site in March. That's for sure.
So what you're saying is that nobody's going to be covering the spring game because everybody's going to be covering Nebraska in the Elite Eight. Is that what you're implying here?
I'm saying you'll be covering the spring game by yourself, I think.
I got it. I got you.
No, I think that, yeah, I mean, that let's dream like that. That'd be awesome if that happened.
If we have to make that decision, that would be that'd
be wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to get into from that conversation? I'll let you choose your own adventure here. You go quarterbacks, you can go Mike Eckler, you can go running backs, you can go where else? Where do you want to go?
Well, today let's go Eckler, since that's like there's been no press release as of this podcast.
Still hold.
Yeah, but there's no signs that he's returning. I mean that, and if you've listened to Rhule last week, that seemed pretty evident. I felt like in his words, and details beyond that suggest as much. I think some people will say, okay, what do you do next? Rhule told you what they're going to do next, unless he changes from that plan, because they're staying in house. I mean, it's going to be the combination of Brett Maher, Nick Humphrey, who was a guy who came over with Eckler from Tennessee, kind of his right-hand man, a young guy that Eckler really liked. And also Josh Martin, you can't discount. He's been on staff for a while, actually coached the tight ends after Bob Wager was let go. And so those are the three names. I thought it was interesting, Bruntz, when he mentioned of Maher that he was like the special weapon and that secret weapon, and that he is much more than just like a technique guy with like the long snapper, kickers, and punters. Like he's way more involved in that, involved in the planning, it sounded like. So I don't discount that he could be the guy. I mean, someone's got to be named it, right? And I guess in this day and age, you could have someone who has a certain title and they might not even count toward your 10 full-time assistant coaches. They can do that however they want to. It really doesn't matter in a way, but that's something I guess that'll be interesting, how they label stuff.
I was asked this on Monday. Can you get back to the same results that you had last season with using the system? You know what I mean? Like, does the system travel here in this situation?
We're about to dadgum find out. I don't know though. I mean, you got to give Eckler a lot of credit when I can't go away from the stuff we said when he was hired. When his results at Tennessee for like 3 to 4 years, I thought on paper were as good as any assistant coach that they were hired bringing in. Like he was just top 10 in everything. And again, they were up there this year. Now, to tell the full story, and Rhule was candid. I mean, it was candid stuff, I thought, on Friday night in the radio interview. They didn't finish quite how they wanted, and I think Eckler would say that too. He did at the Bulls site, and then they didn't have
more meat on that bone, I believe, is what he said.
That's what Eckler said himself, and that was coming off the Iowa game where they did get a loose ball on the kickoff, but then Barney fumbled one, and it might have been a head-to-head, but nonetheless, it was a huge play that worked out Iowa's way, and you felt like Iowa won special teams like they have in the past, and so that's a true thing you have to mark down. And then in the bowl game, after we took Eckler, they thought they could break a big kick return, and they kept bringing them out and getting popped at the 16-yard line. There was a penalty that brought one back to the 8. But some of this stuff happened when it was still like 14-14, type of game. And that really crushes a team's soul when you have bad field position and stuff like that. So there is stuff they can get better at. They made huge plays in October in particular that clearly tilted games. And that was a major step from what we've seen in the past. Also in November, like the whole team, I felt like it just kind of like leveled off or even dipped, and so there is room to grow, but he's not an easy guy to replace. He's very good at what he does. So, and that's why USC wants him.
I think in special teams there's something to be said for a little juice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like go back to what we wrote whenever he was hired and even in fall camp where you know you kind of need that. I think it helps to have that type of personality that gets 18 to 22-year-old kids excited about sprinting down the field and just trying to blow up a wall or like tackle a ball carrier.
Yep.
And is able to impart the importance of that part of the game. You know, just knowing two of the three guys that you mentioned. I mean, I would not say that Brett Maher is probably as fiery as Mike Eckler. However, I mean he's been in plenty of NFL locker rooms. I think the fact that he was a kicker and a punter probably helps with the specialists. And there's not a lot of those types of guys that are just bouncing around college football. I mean, I think it's kind of rare that you have that kind of experience on a coaching staff. But I mean, I think that's in addition to just the teaching part of it, which Matt Rhule has said. I mean, I think there's some power in the juice that he has in terms of getting guys bought into that part of the game.
Is Rhule. So Rhule offered a contract, as he said, mid-season to Eckler, like an extension and raise that would have put him up there among special teams coordinator in the top one or two. And if you listen to Rhule's comments, near the end of the season, he talked about how the three guys we mentioned, how teams were trying to like steal them or get them, for the system, like they wanted Nebraska's system. And I thought it was interesting as it was going on that no one got plucked away yet, and so it all kind of connects, like the contract element signed and maybe an understanding even behind the walls, like, hey, there could be an opportunity here to carry forward with this system. It is an interesting thing to talk about because it's a big loss. Optics wise, it's not good. I think Rhule was kind of fiery about it. And I understand it from his viewpoint. He would say like, hey, we offered a really good contract that puts you near the top. And also if this does connect, and I don't know this for sure, but it seems like people are connecting the dots that Eckler wants to coach defense as well. Maybe with that, Rob Orich comes in and he's got to pick his group, right? Like you can't interfere with that. And so I do understand the complication that Rhule faced. You can only put something before a guy that, and he's either going to take it or leave it. And then you also can't interfere with your DC in how he wants to put his staff together. And so all those things kind of collided here.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the kind of staffing out a defensive coaching group I think Matt Rhule's probably had a fair amount of weigh-in on how the last two coordinators have handled things, and it seems like this is a little bit more of a different approach. You look at Taylor, bringing in Taylor to coach safeties. You've got Manning coaching the edges. He's got his defensive line coach and Corey Brown, a guy that he's familiar with. It's much more of a defensive coordinator's guys versus the coordinator kind of coming in, and that's who he inherits, and even the linebacker group too. I mean, Rob Orich is going to coach linebackers along with Rob Dvorak. So a little bit different approach there than what they've done, which I think is okay. I mean, like I think if you need somebody to come in and overhaul a defense, and Nebraska desperately needs that just based on how last year trended, he's actually getting to hire his guys this time around.
Yeah, you cannot interfere with that. That's the biggest hire he made. And whether he nailed the hire or not, we're going to find out. But you cannot interfere after you make that hire with how he wants to put that together. And so it might have meshed into sort of the special teams conversation in a way, and so maybe that's where we're at, why we're where we are.
That's why we are where we are.
Why we are where we are, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have plenty to unpack this week. Transfer portal is getting closer to closing.
Thank goodness.
Guys can still enter a little bit. Nebraska, would need to kind of do some maneuvering to get guys in now, as well, with the academic calendar. But we'll have plenty on the site from that. Nebraska basketball hosts Washington this week before a trip to Minnesota in the barn. Brian will have plenty from that. Nebraska baseball getting rolling here with preseason practices. Just tons going on. Big Ten schedule release next week, finally. Also, so some odds and ends coming out before you get the way too early Nebraska spring football start at the end of February. So keep it locked on Husker 24/7 for all the latest from that.